and welcome to another video in our Women's History Month series where we're highlighting female sales leaders. Today we are joined by Susan Zuzic. She is the Director of Global Accounts for People.ai. Susan, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on.
We're excited to have you. So diving right in the same way we always do. Tell us, how did you get into sales?
Well, I kind of fell into it. I feel like everybody says that, but when I was finishing school, I didn't think I was going to be in sales. I was actually interviewing for marketing jobs, and then I ran into a company and they put me through an interview process, which was I didn't realize at the time, but they were actually selling to me the way I would be selling once I got the job. And by the time I got through it, I was like, yeah, like I'm going to do this. This is awesome. And so I fell into it, and it was actually an all commission job. And it was selling like IT franchise. So it was like selling not even a physical product. But they got me, and it was the best training of my life. I'm really glad I started there. Everybody kind of has that story, but this was my like boiler room story.
So you start off selling a not even a physical product, going through this incredible training program. Do you have a specific memory where you kind of had that first taste of success, or you had that first moment of going, yes, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life?
Well, I can't say that I had that at this company. It was a really good place to learn, but it was mostly I would say like a lot of inside sellers. Like no, but there was no field sales. There was no advancement per se. It was like you eat what you kill, and you can grow in terms of money, but like wasn't going to be a ton of personal growth. And so, but I really knew I liked selling, and I knew I enjoyed it. And so I went to a company called Eloqua, and that's really where I feel like I was exposed to the type of seller I wanted to be. Right? It was in the software business. It was taking off, and I was just surrounded by true professionals like selling enterprise software. People that I was like, wow, oh my god, like this is what I want to do: solving problems, working with companies, helping define people's careers. And when I found out how much money these guys were making, I was like, okay, yeah, like I'm having fun. This is great. And I could do this long term. And so that was kind of the moment where I thought, okay, well, I definitely want to grow into sales. And at the time, I was just a BDR. Literally, I was just cold calling for these individuals. I didn't even sell at the time. I hadn't closed the deal at this company at all, but I had seen that trajectory and thought, this is definitely something I would want to do.
I feel like that's something a lot of people experience, is that kind of looking at people later on and going, I can do this. I can do that. Mm-hmm. And I can just imagine being a BDR at Eloqua. I mean, what year must that have been? Or not to date yourself a little bit, but that must have been pretty early on.
Yeah, it was, what was it, 2007. So that was like at the beginning of marketing automation. So like, I didn't even realize it at the time, but what we were doing and the way we would prospect and the things we were like, even using our own marketing automation and like the notifications when someone's on the website and all this stuff, like that was totally cutting edge. So being on the ground floor of that was so important, I think, in defining the rest of my career, because it helped me not just sell a product, but it helped me really define an industry and work towards like really truly understanding marketing, understanding how marketing and sales could work together, and then using those modern tools to help me as a seller to continue to grow. Because, I don't think there was as many tools and as much of that, and as much help from marketing back in before marketing automation. So it was really amazing to be able to hit the ground running with Eloqua.
So I have to ask this just because I'm curious. We see a lot of this today I spend a lot of my time with people who are very new to sales. And I have a hard time explaining to them, one, I've had to define more times than I care to count what a Rolodex was. If you're watching and you don't know what a Rolodex is, just Google it. Is there one thing you could a story or a thought that you have that would explain kind of what selling was like pre all of these tools, and versus like kind of what not to take for granted now? What do you think of?
So So we didn't have like the outreaches and the sales lofts and the you know what I mean, all of that, and like or like a People AI that would just like log all your stuff in into Salesforce for you. It's like you literally had to go, and I remember having to like Google and guess people's phone numbers, and I had to like call. There was no like directory of being like, okay, here's a number and here's a list we purchased. It was like I had to go and research and try to call the receptionist and game the system or press different buttons to try to get like someone, you know what I mean? You're like kind of being a detective without any tools. You have to be really resourceful. So I don't know. It sounds so silly now because I feel like we just have so much at our disposal. But like even LinkedIn and stuff like in-mails were, I don't know, people I feel like open them more. I feel like it's incredibly competitive now because of all the information, the insight we had. Digital body language on a customer was such a new concept. We didn't even have that. You wouldn't even know what people were interested in before that. Now we could actually see what they were clicking on and viewing. So it was really a model type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think some of the most interesting tools to me now, it's like you can send people videos of yourself. You can find somebody's phone number regardless of where they're at. You can reach them in any which way possible. You can send Dozo someone cupcakes, like whatever it is. And it's just we didn't have that stuff, and we have to try to be creative without technology. And I don't know, it's just really different. And I think it's really cool to see what we've got. But I also think now when you start in a sales job, it's like, what do you focus on and what do you not focus on? Because there's so many different tools and tactics you can use. And so it's like trying to figure out what is your style, what works for you, and then just staying true to that and not getting bogged down with too many different tools to use.
Okay, so given all of that, which is so true, especially with this really crowded tech landscape, and it's interesting watching your perspective kind of bridging those two sides. Tell me a little bit about some of the obstacles that you've encountered in your sales career. What were some of the harder things to get past, maybe internally, externally? What challenged you on your way to where you are now?
Um, well, I think part of it was okay, if you're starting out at the very bottom of the sales totem pole, how do you actually move up? And how do you figure out how to do that as quickly as possible? And I just remember trying to learn from as many people as humanly possible and try and like, if I was supporting folks, I'd be like, hey, can I hop on your calls? Can I learn? I think learning was one of the biggest strengths that I had. And I still do that today. It's like, I always want to know what people are doing and how are things getting better because things constantly evolve and change. And if you don't, then you're going to be left behind. And so when I think about obstacles, like nobody had ever, at Eloquent at least, nobody had ever been promoted from a BDR even to an inside seller when I started, let alone from when I moved to inside sales to the field. The field was like twice my age. And so I just thought to myself, how am I ever going to do this? Right. And so that was I think that could be a big mental obstacle. And I just was like, you know what? I don't care. Forget about it. I'm just going to go for it. And I'm just going to keep pushing. I'm going to tell absolutely everybody and their mother what I want to do and who I want to be and what I want to be when I grow up. Right. I know how funny that sounds, but that was something that I think I was like, just going to push forward, even though it may have sounded silly at the time. But, once you tell people what you want to do, it's amazing. They'll start to help you, right? If you never tell them what you want to do, then the obstacles are just yours. They don't become something that someone can actually help you overcome if you don't know how to do it on your own. And so that was one of the first things. Just tell everybody what you want to do. And obviously you have to be good at your job and have the numbers and all that. But like if you do, then people will want to actually help you and guide you because in their career, there was probably somebody doing that for them, right? And it's kind of that pay it forward mentality. I think too, so when I finally did move to the field, I didn't just move to the field, I actually moved to a new country, right? So I had moved from Toronto to San Francisco and had moved from being an inside seller to a field seller. And that was very different, right? Like I needed to build my ecosystem, rebuild my life, do everything. And that was for sure an obstacle, right? And how do you go into a new territory that's been cannibalized by all the other reps, because they know someone's coming, so they take all the ops. How do you go and build new territory when you don't know anyone? And so what I did was, I'm like, okay, I just went and met every single customer we had, whether they were mine or not. I didn't care. I just needed to meet people. So I just would schedule lunches, go for coffees, and just make friends with other people's networks. And then in turn, it helped me kind of be able to reference conversations, and it helped me grow and just feel more comfortable in my new role and in my new atmosphere. Um, and then I think about when I moved into leadership, at Oracle. It was trying to see and maneuver, a very complex political place like Oracle, and meeting a lot of different people that have done that successfully in the past, and understanding, okay, I knew how to get things done at a small company. How do I now get things done at a big company, right? And how do I figure that out? And how do I find and create allies and people that all, because it's like every time you have a new obstacle, you have to continue to learn and surround yourself with different people that can help you with that. And so I think throughout my career, I've always just tried to surround myself with folks that have similar values, that will help, that are, going to help me learn and then grow. And it's helped me propel, throughout my career, and also have fun doing it. Right? If you're surrounded by people that are, of a like mindset, that can help you, that are willing to help, it makes the journey a lot more fun.
Absolutely. So, thinking back, especially on those difficult times, were there ever situations where you felt like you were undervalued or people underestimated you? And how did you respond to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes being sometimes being a woman, a young woman walking into a room and like presenting to, 20 people, they think like, who is this? Like, she's not the typical software seller I'm used to seeing in this role. And so I had to, and you're in sales, you're kind of hyper vigilant on how you're perceived. And so I had to go in and be doubly prepared. I had to be extra on the money, and at the, like, literally watch the way their way they interacted with me would change by the end of the meeting, because I had essentially had to come in and extra earn their, respect, if that made sense, right? And it's unfortunate, but I think people just have perceptions, like when you're young, when you're this, when you're that, like, you kind of have to work a little bit harder for people to take you seriously. And so that was something that I had to, that I learned, when you're now face to face and you're in the field. I was like, oh, there's this bias that I'm feeling, and I have to come in and be that much better so that I can overcome it. Um, and and maybe part of it too might have also been my feeling that, hey, all my peers were a lot older and more seasoned than me, and I was newer at it. And so I had to, part of it might have been my own perception of myself. But that was definitely something I feel like I worked through. And then when I was in leadership, when I wanted to get into leadership, I was overlooked for a role that I was perfect for, and there was, like, literally, I was the best candidate, but I was overlooked because my numbers were so good from a selling standpoint. They didn't want to move me into a manager role, because then they'd have that void in the field, and I was pissed. Like, sorry, I don't know if I can say that, but I was really, yeah, I was really I was really upset. And instead of just sitting back and being like, oh well, oh, that sucks, oh, woe is me, I was like, well, I'm going to take action. And I literally called, like, every single person. I was like, hey, why didn't I get this? I don't understand. And why wasn't it even offered to me? I have expressed, the desire to lead, and this happened without an external hire was made, without even considering, an internal candidate who has expressed interest in the past. And there, I got a lot of, BS on, oh, well, we didn't realize. And it's like, well, hey, guess what? Now you do. You're on notice. I'm really interested. So next time, I want to compete for it. Give me the opportunity. And I think sometimes women are afraid to speak up and be as bold like that. I did exactly what any man would have done, right? Wherein sometimes women may not, they might feel like they're being too pushy or that that's an aggressive move. But like I literally thought to myself, like, if I don't do this, this will happen again. And I need to make my intentions clear as to where I want to go and where I want to be, especially in this new culture. And I'll tell you, next time an opportunity came around, I had to compete for it just like everybody else, but I got it, and I ended up being one of the best sales leader hires that they had. So I think it's like you have obstacles and things happen, you might be overlooked, but it's what you do after that happens to you that really defines who you are in your career, right? So that would be, something that happened to me.
Absolutely. And kind of keeping on that same track, do you have any advice for a woman who feels like maybe she's hit that glass ceiling with her current employer or her current role?
Yeah, well, if you feel that way, you probably have. So I think, what do they say, right? The realization or understanding that there's a problem is like the first step. So if that happens and that's where you think you are, then I think it's a great opportunity to start to talk and explore and talk to your network internally and externally. But first, I would say talk externally as much as possible. Figure out what the options are, because sometimes the grass isn't necessarily greener, even though everybody feels like it is or must be. Sometimes it's not. So, really explore, get informed. What is it that you want to do? What is the next step in your career? And then where could you be doing that successfully? And is that something that you would want to do? And is it worth leaving? Once you have those options and you've actually explored that and you have a path forward there, if you've got that, then you can start to explore those options internally and say, hey, well, listen, this is what I'd like to do, and then see how they react. Now you have another path if that is going to politically hurt you or make people look at you a different way because now they think you're on the way out, whatever. You've now created a path for yourself if you need to go. So it's not as tricky to maneuver, right? I think where sometimes people will go in, they'll express their intentions when they feel like they've hit that, and then all of a sudden they've created this stigma for themselves and they're stuck and they don't have a way out and now they're in limbo. I like to have lots of options when I'm making decisions on career moves, and so I think being super informed is really important. So yeah, just like explore, learn, surround yourself with other people that can help you, get advice. Never be afraid to ask for advice. Just be careful of who you ask it of, because you always have to think about, like, are they really there to help me, or do they have an ulterior motive? And maybe it's like, like I always think that way because it happened to me. It's like, oh no, they needed me in this role, so they weren't going to help me here. It's like, try to find really good unbiased advice and people that can guide you and give you those options.
So much right there to unpack. I'm going to have to go back and listen to it again. But kind of moving into kind of the last couple of questions here, just to be respectful of everybody's time, what would you say to someone who's considering a career in sales?
I would say I love it. Sales is phenomenal if you can get in and you feel you've got the right, like if you feel it's a good fit for your personality and the way you want to be working, go for it. Two words of advice I would give would be, number one, try to find a space that you're passionate about. Um, your customers and the people you work with will feel that passion, and it will help you. It will fuel your career. So find something that you can be passionate about, some the industry or the product or whatever. And then when you do find the industry and what you want to sell, um, find a product or a service or whatever that you actually then believe in, right? Because there could be an industry you really love, but then maybe the product's not there or whatever. Find something that you believe in, because at the end of the day, once you do get into sales, and if you want to have the longevity in your career, you really have one thing that carries with you from company to company, which is your reputation, right? And so if you can go and sell things you believe in and are passionate about, and do right by your customers, do right by the people you work with, you will have a phenomenal career in sales because your reputation will be that much better because of what you're selling and the success that you're driving for your customers. So those would be some of the things I would say. Just think about it as you think about that career move, because those are the things that will make you not just be successful short term, but long term as well.
That's absolutely true. And finally, our last question. How can we as a community better support women in sales so we can all continue to achieve great things together?
I think this has tremendously changed, even in my sales career, the attitudes of women towards other women. I didn't have a lot of female support growing in sales. There was some, but I had to say I aligned really nicely with a lot of my male counterparts, a lot of my male leaders. There were some, but it was more of a male software, right? It was more male dominated. And some of the women at the top weren't necessarily willing to support each other, and which is unfortunate. I think the best thing that I've seen happen over the years is this tremendous rallying of women together to help each other, to support one another, just willing to help someone you don't even know, but you've maybe a friend of a friend that you know what I mean. Like, helping other women is just this. I hope it's not just a theme that happens for low. I hope it's just this movement that continues on, because it's phenomenal. And I spoke at, we used to have this Oracle class of training. I'm sure they still have it, where they'd bring like 500 new students into Santa Clara University, train them up on sales, and then set them out into the wild. And one of the things that one of the students asked me when I was speaking was, "Hey, so do you have any advice for the female sellers in the room?" And I was like, and everybody got up, like looked at him and were like, like you asked some sort of really terrible question. And I was like, no, it was, I think it came from a good place. And one of the things that we forget is, as female sellers, we have some skills that are just inherent to who we are. We listen better. We can multitask. We're very organized. Like, these are all just things that women, and they're stereotypes, but a lot of women have these things. It's just part of being a woman. And so we are actually, a lot of the top sellers I've met in my career are women. And if we can band together and support each other and continue to learn and help the younger generation, help the older generation, everybody just support one another, we're unstoppable, and it'll be amazing. And it'll just be so much more fun for everybody. So my thing would be, don't worry about, having to be like Queen Bee or whatever it was back. It's like, there's enough out there for everybody. We just need to support one another and help one another. And it doesn't mean push the guys aside. Like, of course, there's so many really awesome calls we have that are men as well. So, like, support them too. But if you can talk to one of your, females who maybe is younger and they're thinking about having a baby and they're worried about their career, share what it was really like, right? Don't sugarcoat it. Give them the real advice. If something's happened to you in your career and somebody's talking about it, like, be vulnerable and actually talk about that. Because I wish people had done that with me. It would have really helped as I became a mother and grew my career and all those things. So I just think support, openness, being vulnerable, and then just continuing to stick together is super important.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with literally everything you just said. And I, for one, don't think it's just a passing fad. I think it's a longer term movement. It's going to lift up the entire sales profession, which is why I'm so excited to be doing these videos. So Susan Zuzic, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to learn more about Susan, of course, you can check her out on LinkedIn. And with that, thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned for more interviews with amazing sales pros like Susan all month long.